everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Great Engine opening series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and in this and the next video we are going to be taking a look at a very interesting and little known line in the Sicilian Dragon, which the latest version of Dragon 3.3 highlighted for me. And well, I was so interested with it, I ran a lot of engine games, ran a lot of analysis, and it really does seem worthwhile. So this is the main line of the Sicilian Dragon, where white has played the move 6 bishop e3. What is white's intention? White wants to play queen d2, f3, actually f3 first and then queen d2, and then either castle or play the bishop to c4. You know, this is known as a very aggressive and very, very sharp branch of the Sicilian with huge amounts of theory. Well, what Dragon sort of highlighted was very, very nice, very interesting, and as I said, not very well known. So, well, let's have a look first of all how he reached this position, and then afterwards we're going to have a look at Dragon's recommendation. So we get it from e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, g6, introducing the Dragon, bishop e3, the main line, and now the move bishop g7 has been more or less automatic, but what Dragon plays is the move knight c6, and after f3, stopping knight g4 and preparing queen d2, then black plays the move h5, rook spawn. So, yeah, I mean, h5 is, of course, not unknown in Sicilians. It's played in the Najdorf against bishop e3 systems to stop white from playing g4. And it's also played a lot in the Dragon itself as well, actually normally to stop h4 to h5. But this move h5 is not just about stopping the advance g4. Well, seeing what Dragon came up with and the idea that that Dragon had, you know, it made me think of two things, and I want to share those with you first of all, because I think once you've seen these similar ideas, the rest of it will make a lot more sense. So the first idea that that it reminded me of was an idea that Sergei Tsivyakov, the great Dragon player, came up with quite a long time ago. It was during his period where he was playing the Dragon in the accelerated Dragon move order. So that's 2 knight c6, and after d4 takes, playing g6. Now the downside to this move order is that white can play a Maroczy bind with c4 and really just try and clamp down on black's position. But here, instead of the automatic bishop g7, Sergei was playing the move bishop h6. I mean, when I first saw this, you know, I just thought, just amazed, really. I mean, never even occurred to me that this was legal. And it's, in some ways, you know, a very strange move. I mean, you're really flattening out black's dynamism here by exchanging off the dark squared bishops. I mean, after all, even in an accelerated Dragon, the dark squared bishop, that's your guy. That's the guy that's going to give you counterplay by cutting across the white position and hitting the white queen side. But, you know, it's sort of a similar idea to the Queen's Gambit declined. I mean, you're going to exchange off one, maybe two pairs of minor pieces, and you're going to claim that white's attacking potential has been reduced so much that he can't generate anything. Even if white does have a fairly substantial space advantage, with the exchange of a couple of sets of minor pieces, what can white do to you? Now, the engines are not at all impressed. This is Stockfish's main line here. Queen d2, knight takes d4. This is at 230,000 million nodes, so, you know, quite deep, really. Stockfish gives itself, you know, +1 in this position. Likes the space, likes the possibilities. Black doesn't really have, you know, that much going for him. But, you know, it's an interesting idea, and certainly against a very keen attacking player, this is not a bad continuation at all. The other line that Dragon's idea reminded me of was a line that Anish Giri recommends in his recent and excellent Chessable course and book on the Dragon Sicilian, and against the Yugoslav attack. So this is the line with bishop c4. White can also play castle queenside, But against bishop c4, Anish recommended a line that I hadn't seen really at all, I think, before. And that's just to take and go bishop e6. And, again, it's a similar mindset to the line that Sergei played, because you're not really going for an all-out attack as you'd expect, from the Sicilian dragon. Actually, what Black's trying to do in this line is to exchange off a couple of pairs of minor pieces, reduce White's attacking potential, and then you're just claiming that, with your solid pawn structure here, that Black's kind of impervious to anything that White can throw at him, especially if White's attacking potential has been so greatly reduced by the exchange of a couple of sets of minor pieces. And the line that Dragon comes up with is very much in that ballpark. It's not an all-out attacking idea. The idea really is that you're going to neutralize White by exchanging off minor pieces, by exchanging off queens even. But yeah, along the way there's also some very, very interesting stuff as well. So let's have a look how that takes shape. So bishop e3, knight c6, f3, and now h5. Now the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to first of all go through the lines that are most thematic, that really make the most sense. Now these are not necessarily the top engine lines, but for me they really get the essence of this system across the best. You also don't need to worry about taking notes because I'm going to put the PGNs of these lines and also the lines in the next video up in the normal place. Take a look at the comments to see where that is. And so yeah, you've got everything that you need in order to play this this system. So after h5 we've got two main lines. I look at a lot more, but we've got two main lines, and that's queen d2 and also bishop c4. Now bishop c4 is the main engine choice, but queen d2 is obviously also very popular, and a main also probably the main continuation against a normal dragon when you play bishop g7 and castles, so well worth looking at. And here the first really crucial point, key to the concept, is that Black takes on d4. As soon as the white queen moves to d2, Black takes on d4. That's absolutely true in all lines. What's the point? Well, if White wants to take with the queen on d4, then White's actually wasted the tempo. He's played queen d2 takes d4. And if White takes with the bishop on d4, then we see the next stage of Black's plan. So bishop takes d4 is not the engine favourite. Queen takes d4 is the engine favourite, but I'm going to have a look at bishop takes d4 first of all, because this again is really thematic, really gets the ideas across. So here we play bishop h6. Yep, echoes of Sergei Tivyakov there, and well, you can also see why h5 is a useful move. It's supporting bishop h6. Now the key point is that bishop e3 is not at all dangerous. You've swapped off two sets of minor pieces. That's greatly reduced White's attacking potential. And after something like bishop e6, castles, queen a5, yeah, Black's actually doing completely fine there. I've got loads and loads of engine games and analysis in the PGN, so don't worry too much about that. But that's the basic idea, that the exchange of bishops is not something that Black has to fear. So White actually plays the move queen f2, and this is Stockfish's first choice when bishop takes d4 is specified on move 9. And you can sort of ask yourself, well, why is this so great for Black? What on earth is the point? I mean, okay, you've attacked the queen, but the queen's moved out of the way. Actually, the bishop takes a7 is threatened. I'm also threatening bishop f6. But the key point is that this bishop on h6 is cutting across the diagonal and actually stopping White from castling queenside. And if you stop White from castling queenside, that means that that White's attacking chances are going to be much smaller. It's really going to be harder for White to generate the normal dragon attack. The other key thing is that bishop takes f6 is actually not half as dangerous as you might imagine. Yes, it does weaken Black's structure, but after e takes f6, Black gets the chance to play f5, and this dark squared bishop is mighty. And the weakness of d6 just a light square on d5 is not as important as you might think. So what are we going to look at here? We are going to have a look at Queen A5. Now this is not the engine choice, but it's the most common human choice. And I think that's probably because after castles, then at every step of the way, you've got to consider whether bishop takes a7 is dangerous. The engines don't think it is, but a little bit of cognitive overload there for human players. So Queen A5, which is also a very decent move, is definitely worth looking at there. And now bishop b5 check. Again, not the main engine move. Bishop c4 is the main engine move. But I can't really explain why that is the case until we've had a look at the most obvious move, which is bishop b5 check. Now, playing these sort of unusual ideas, h5, bishop h6, that normally means that you can't just carry on in on automatic pilot, in a sort of an easy way. You've always got to just be a little bit careful. I mean, if you played a move like bishop d7, that would, kind of be horrible. Then you start taking like this. Obviously, you can't take because the rook is hanging on h8. And after king d7, rook d1, takes, castles. Yeah, this is actually, not very nice at all. You don't have the two bishops anymore because the light square bishops have been exchanged. Your structure is awful and the king's in the middle. That's not what you want. So you've got to be just a little bit cleverer than that and play the move king f8. So castles from white here. Again, not the most common move, but these are still good moves for white, and they're the most illustrative here. And now we play the move e5 from black. And remember this is a really key idea. Black's idea is kind of to go back to a sort of a Najdorf structure with the pawns d6 and e5, claiming that square on d5 and the backward pawn on d6 are not at all dangerous. And after bishop e3, we take, and we play the move bishop e6 here. And in my engine games, white played the move bishop a4 here to play the move bishop b3, eventually try and fight for the d5 square. And now we've had knight takes d4, we've had bishop h6, we've had the move e5 and bishop takes e3, and now we've got another absolutely key point of this line. It's the maneuver queen a5 and then queen c5. And this is the completion of black's play. Just we're going to swap off the queens. And essentially what you're doing here, you are completely robbing the white position of any sort of attacking potential. You're really just draining the life from white's position. And, well, this ending for black is, just completely equal. The engines were making draw after draw after draw. Now, if you were going to play this, I definitely recommend playing a few test games out to make sure that you, and also have a look at the analysis in the PGN to make sure that you understand the endings correctly. But this position is very, very close to equal. Black's doing absolutely fine in this position. So just to recap there, very illustrative line here. When the queen moves to d2, we take on d4. We play the bishop to h6 to stop white from castling queenside. This move queen a5 comes in, and then we play e5, and then we swap off the queens with queen c5, and we reach a completely equal ending. This ending with d takes c5 completely equal. Now let's put some little details on there. This is actually probably in a way almost all you need to know in order to play the line, in order to have a good chance of playing the line successfully. Just on on a guessing basis somehow. But let's just have a little look at at what white can do there. Just going back to this position, something like bishop takes f6, e takes f6. I mean, this is quite a key sort of position. Actually, it's probably the best version of this that white can get because the black king is on f8 here. rather than having castled. But for example, these are games Stockfish against Dragon. Bishop c4 was played by the engine, and now Bishop f4. I think this was Stockfish as black. Castles, Bishop e5. Very common idea again in this line. Do take a look at this one. Activating the bishop f4 to e5. Very, very nice. Knight to d1, g5, c3, and h4. And well, as you can see, black's really going for the dark squares on this line. And well, king h1, queen c5, queen e2, bishop d7, bishop d5, rook e8. Black had plenty of decent counterplay there. And bishop g3 is coming in, maybe even f5. It's very possible to win these positions as black, not even just draw them. So just a nice unbalanced position there, but yeah, not really any problems for black. So I said that bishop b5 check wasn't the main engine line. The main engine line actually is to play the move bishop c4 here. And well, you can imagine that sort of makes sense, right? I mean, rather than if black's going to play e5, let's have the bishop on c4 here, pointing towards the d5 square. But what black can do here, it's very Anish Giri-ish, of course, is to play bishop e6. What is white doing then? And this is a very typical idea that you're seeing quite a lot in these lines. White's playing bishop b5 check. Huh? King f8 and castles. What on earth is the point of that? Why play bishop c4 and give black a development tempo with bishop e6? Well, you will notice that black doesn't have the move e5 anymore. By bringing the black bishop to e6, you're preventing black from playing e5 and swapping off the dark square bishops. And what's white's idea? Well, if white's given enough opportunity and a little bit of freedom, white's going to play f4 and start pushing the center and kingside pawns. And well, then the strange black moves, king f8, h5, bishop h6. Then those sort of moves might end up playing some sort of role. But what was Stockfish doing in this position? I think it was Stockfish. It was bishop f4. Yeah, this is the Dragon Stockfish game from this position, a4 and h4. h3, a6, and queen g5. Knight e2, bishop g3. And, well, after queen e3 takes bishop e5. Black had a pretty decent position. White's a little bit better, but black's got a completely reasonable position as well. And well, Stockfish drew this without any problems, and you can see the game in the PGN. But yeah, this is a big white idea, this bishop c4, bishop b5. So losing time, but stopping black from getting this idea of e5 to swap off the dark square bishops. Kind of shows you how important this idea is for black and how good it is for black that the engines are willing just to give away a tempo completely just to do that. Now, I mentioned the move castles from black. The ideas are very, very similar, but it's just, yeah, you're not committing the queen to a5 yet, so it's just a little bit more flexible. But here, once again, bishop c4 is the main idea, bishop e6, and now bishop d3, just to stop you from playing e5. And, well, if you have a look at the ideas in this position, queen a5, castles, bishop d7, bishop c4, and now e5, bishop e3 takes. King g7, bishop b3, bishop c6, rook d1, rook d8, rook d2. And if you've been paying attention, you know the idea, queen c5 again. And once again, black's swapping off the queens here, and we're getting some sort of equal position there. Bishop d5, rook d7, rook d8. This was, yeah, a Stockfish against Dragon game where Dragon held this very easily as black. Yeah, once again, all in the PGN, but you're getting a sense that these ideas are cropping up again and again, and this idea of drawing the bishop to e6 and moving away with white, that's a very common engine recommendation. So yeah, after this line, you've got bishop h6. You've actually got both queen a5 and castles, which are quite decent. However, bishop d4 is not the main engine line. It's queen takes d4, and now actually you're playing bishop g7 with black. So you're not bothering with bishop h6, of course. Yeah, you don't have to keep entirely to your ideas. Bishop g7. Well, we're going to be attacking the queen, so the queen will have to move again afterwards. And we're just claiming that this is giving us a number of extra tempi. And okay, this move h5 has weakened the black king side, you can say. On the other hand, it's stopping this move g4. It's also stopping the advance h4 to h5. So yeah, actually, maybe it's not even a loss of tempo at all. So yeah, in this position, we get the engines playing some games here. There's not very much human experience here. Rook c8. Knight b5 was one idea, a6, knight d4, bishop d7, h3, and then queen c7. And well, this gets sharp very quickly. g4, rook d8, and yeah, the engines are aiming for a quick e5 and d5. For example, after a move like rook h2, just to defend the c pawn laterally, then we've got bishop a4. We've also got e5 and d5 in this position, which is lots and lots of counterplay. Lots and lots of sharp lines in the PGN, which you can take a look at. But yeah, this move queen takes d4 is definitely the engine's favourite. They really like this bishop h6 idea for black against bishop takes d4. Now the other line for white, very big line, of course. It's the move bishop c4 here. For example, I'm having a look here at a game between Firouzja and Andrejkin in the chess.com speed chess tournament 2023, so very, very recent. So bishop c4, what is black playing here? Not bishop g7, but playing the move bishop d7. Now, funnily enough, this position was actually given at the TCC, and the engines have played it in the super final, I think, in 2020, so quite a long time ago. And Leela's idea actually was to play the move knight a5, and then after bishop d3 to play bishop g7, queen d2, bishop d7, castles, and rook c8, and then follow up with knight c4. Transposes to line that we look at in great detail elsewhere in this PGN. Yeah, we've got lots and lots of analysis on that, but definitely a very interesting idea as well. If you don't want to necessarily to follow Dragon's idea, you can definitely follow Leela's idea of knight a5. It got Leela a draw against Stockfish in the super final. So yeah, obviously a pretty strong move. But bishop d7. And now, what's the main move? Queen d2 in this position. And now what is black playing? Well, if you want to stick to Dragon's idea, you're going to play knight takes d4. It's what we said before. The white queen moves to d2, you take on d4. And now the main move here is bishop d4. After queen takes d4, we're simply going bishop g7 again, castles, castles, and well, this is a little bit of a funny combination in actual fact. We've got the threat of discovered attacks, and this bishop's also going to be a source of attack. For example, after queen d3, then Dragon was already wanting to sack a pawn with b5 in this position. Maybe not even completely necessary, but yeah, that's what Dragon was going for. So bishop takes d4 is played, and then once again we go bishop h6. And once again, queen f2 is one of the main lines that the engine chooses. I mean, queen d3 is also possible as well. That was also an engine choice. Castles, and then castle kingside for white, and then black plays the move e6. But I mean, when you compare this to a normal Dragon, where white's castling queenside and shoving the kingside pawns forward and sacking everything, well, here you've just managed to nudge white into castling kingside. That's not a bad result. Actually, it kind of looks like a Scheveningen Najdorf kind of structure. So queen d3 is possible as well. Got lots of analysis on that, but queen f2 is the most natural. I mean, both because well, it feels the most natural, supporting f4, and we're also supporting the move bishop takes a7. Now, once again, we've got a couple of choices here. We've got castles here, which I think was the main engine move still. But we've also got queen a5, which is very human, and yeah, it deals with the threat on a7, so you don't need to keep on worrying about that. Now this is an interesting moment now because the engines were really focusing on something, on a novelty, something that hadn't been played much before. If you go castles, then we just go e5, takes, we go rook c8, hit the bishop, and then we go queen c5, takes and takes. And this was actually a game played between Audi and Benardsky, Lagos 2023, where black was the higher rated player and drew very, very comfortably indeed. No problem about that at all. We've seen the standard thing there. So yeah, I mean, that's not too scary. What the engines wanted to play, bishop b3 was my move, and that's also quite interesting. I mean, basically what you're trying to do, you're trying to sort of make sure that my pieces are better placed for the eventual end game. Maybe I want my king in the center and I don't want it over on here, and I want to put my bishop safe before anything's happening. Bishop b3 also possible, though the engine's not too worried. But rook d1 was the engine move, and here white's trying to anticipate that exchange of bishops, prefaced with e5, and really trying to get the very best version. Now, if you go e5, then we can take and queen takes e3, and yeah, there's a few little problems for black here. If you play queen c5, just going directly to our standard structure, then actually knight d5 just wins a pawn. Takes, and well, what can you do? Both e5 and c5 are hanging. If you go rook c8, we just go bishop b3, and again, we're still attacking this pawn, and there's still a lot of danger. And you just notice, by the way, that since I haven't castled yet, queen c5 doesn't force the exchange of queens. I could sidestep anywhere I want, which is also very annoying indeed. Rook c6, queen g5 is kind of irritating in these positions. Actually, the engines were thinking we just have to sacrifice the exchange and try and grimly hold on there. So not e5. So after rook d1, the engines were having a look at playing the move rook c8. Yeah, I mean, if you go castles in this position, then white goes castles, e5, bishop e3, takes, and well, this is still quite decent for black, but it's a better version of the endgame you can imagine for white, because white's getting onto the d file very, very quickly there. So this continuation was not the engine favourite. That's why they're playing rook c8 first. And after bishop b3, here the engines were being very concrete. Again, not playing e5 because, yeah, after bishop e3, white's got a better version of this line. The engines here were playing the move bishop b5. And this is one of those variations where you say, if I'm playing this, I've got to be absolutely concrete and do this. And actually, this is really, really unusual. The bishops here are just cutting across the white king and stopping it from castling. And of course the queen on a5, pinning the knight on c3, so knight b5 isn't possible. And if you just let black continue, black's going to go castles, and then at some stage play e5, and who knows, maybe d5 or rook takes c3. So takes, and queen d4 was the engine main line, and now castles, not fearing this at all, of course. Something like bishop g7, have lots of counterplay. King f2, bishop c6. And yeah, queen takes f6, queen c5 check, queen d4, bishop g7 takes. And well, this is sort of a typical thing from the engines. They're sort of thinking that okay, white's got an extra pawn, but got the two bishops, got quite a mobile queenside structure here. This is more than enough compensation for the pawn. Lots of games from the engines here, all ending in draws, and yeah, you can see them in the PGNs. So what I just wanted to do to finish off this video was actually to just give you a little bit of a warning, I suppose, and just show you that occasionally you've got to be a little bit careful about playing this idea of e5, bishop e3, queen c5, etc., because you can get it wrong. And let me just show you one, well, perhaps the most salient example. and that was bishop b3 in this position. So this is a move I suggested. I mean, the engines, we've just looked at the line where white plays rook d1, which is very good, but bishop b3 has similar ideas. I mean, you're just trying to get the bishop out of the way of any attacks, and just try and anticipate and have the the best possible setup for the ensuing endgame. And actually, after castles, rook d1, we transpose to a position that that could be reached from rook d1, castles, bishop b3. And well, if here, what the ancients were playing was either king g7 or the move rook fd8 here, which was going very well for black. But you might just be a little bit incautious and just say, okay, well, I'll just play e5, that's just absolutely fine. But there's a bit of a problem there. We go bishop e3, takes, and you might think, okay, well, I play queen c5, I'm going to swap off the queens, and that's my way of protecting the d pawn. However, once again, with the king not castled, there's no pin there forcing the exchange of queens, so white can actually simply avoid the exchange of queens. And here, in this position, with black having castled, well, actually there's two ways to exploit this. The first is one that we've seen already. Takes and knight d5 will actually win a pawn, because you can't do anything but knight d5, and I take with a rook. I'm grabbing these. But there's something even more scary, and that's the move queen h6. Perhaps the only time I've really seen a downside to this move, but white's threatening the move queen takes g6, and it's absolutely impossible to stop. The only thing that you could do is to play the move bishop e6, and then, well, we'll play something like rook d3 and give a check on h6 whenever we want to, and white's obviously just much better. So that's the only thing you have to look out with this idea, e5 and bishop e3. Just make sure that when you play queen c5, it kind of really forces the exchange of queens, because white's already castled kingside. But that's really the most important specific thing that you have to watch out for. And as I said, in this sort of position, after castles rook d1, the engines were looking at a move like king g7. First of all, protecting those invasion squares, and then looking to play the move e5 later. So after castles, then they were playing e5 and queen c5, for example, which was going very well. So that is the main line. Now, I haven't covered absolutely everything in there. There's loads more in the PGN, but I think for a video explaining this system, I think I've got the main ideas for you. Once again, just running through them quickly. That's as soon as the queen comes to d2, take on d4. If white has to play queen d4, then that's wasted tempo. And if bishop takes d4, you bring the bishop to h6. And one of the main ideas here is simply to play the move e5, going into some sort of Najdorf structure, swap off the bishops, and then when you get the chance, swap off the queens. And the resulting endgame here with this pawn structure is just equal for black. And it's very much, in the Geary chessable course kind of approach, that you're not playing the dragon to try and mate the opponent. You're trying to play the dragon to, like a sort of a Queen's Gambit declined, exchanging a couple of sets of minor pieces, just like in the Tartakova QGD, and then really blunting white's attacking potential, and also being ready to exchange off the queens after, and you're relying on your really solid structure to carry you through any difficulties there. Maybe not the world's most exciting thing, but I think it could be really effective against a white open Sicilian player who's really looking to attack, and you're just going to drive him to despair by taking away all this attacking potential. And I definitely think that you can play these sort of end games, for a win with black, just as you can play them for a win with white. They're that good. So there we are. Hope you found that intriguing. What I'm going to do in the next video is I'm going to take a good look at move orders, because I think you can imagine that playing an idea like knight c6 delaying the bishop to g7. There's all sorts of ideas where white can try and tweak his move order, play bishop e3, bishop c4 before playing f3, play bishop c4 before queen d2, that sort of thing, to try and confuse you. So you've got to be prepared for that. But the good news is there's no way to get around this this system. There's always a good reply to any white move order. So stay tuned and hope to see you at the next video. Thanks for watching.